Hey folks, this is Vishwas Narayan. So Wilsey couldn't be part of this meet because of some reasons. I hope she's great, and there are a lot of things that we wanted to cover on Power BI. So this is a part one of the series of Power BI. And also, when you think of some kind of an applications like anything like you really want to know something like, hey, this is what my Power BI is capable of doing. What next can be done? Power BI has never been an effective tool over a course of time. So here we will be saying and teaching ourselves what is this all about, Power BI. And also, before starting this webinar, I would love to give an intro to my community, which is easydev.community. And here we just have one thing in our mind, and it's all about upskilling, learning, and networking. And over a course of time, this is what developers require, because in industry, what they really think about is, can I really upskill my people without ghosting them for training or something? And this is what we require, and every single day we are just increasing in the way in which we are giving an access to the tech and the things like that. And I feel community is one such initiative which we can do that. So we are 9,000 plus strong community, and we have an amazing set of people who will be joining us over a course of time, and I think we'll see is coming. So yeah, let's just start with the session up there. And also we have a session from Priyanka ma'am. As usual, every Thursdays we have booked her kind of a contract that we have given to her. Like, we can't really say it as a contract. Also, it's all the people that you're reaching out back, and you're just asking us to get her, and we are now with them. And Tarun Marva sir is also there, and a lot of other sessions are as well. And I think Logic Apps Part 2, and yeah, Prometheus Grafana working with Jenkins, and of course SRE from Peter T. Trender. And also, if you really are interested, make sure that you want to become a partner in community. Yes, you can be one. If you want to really see what are the past events that has been conducted, yes, there is, and community organizers are here. And also, you can be in the speakers bureau. What you have to just do is you have to just go here and just fill out this form to sign up as a speaker and things like that, and everything will be sorted. And that's it, folks, from our side. And let's go on with our learning. So let me open my screen on your whiteboard, Microsoft Whiteboard. I hope you guys can see. Yep, I can see that. I'm already in the show. I'm already in the show. Fine. So now let's just forget that there is a fact that there is an article called as Power BI. Where is this Power BI? So thanks to some folks who really motivated me to do this, or else I wouldn't have even touched the graphics tablet for in my entire life. So yep, let's get this thing started. It's locked. So Power BI was basically a tool which was built to just do analytics for the business intelligence aspect. And also, whatever it is, there is always an introduction to everything. Like, there is always an introduction to what can be done, what can't be done, right? So let's just not just waste our time, and let's just think of what is this ML, machine learning. Machine learning has been a very crucial thing in the today's world, because we are lazy to make sure that we read the data, and then we make sure that we need to understand it. All right. So, and every time it's not the same thing. It's not about the same old business analytics tools, which was machine learning back then, but today it's a different story. Right now, when you think of something like it has many subcategories like supervised, unsupervised, and this is a different category, reinforce and learning. And also when you have think when you are thinking about something as a new application, like there is always a trade-off, and always we think about what is the flexibility that we are supposed to get. Like I can think of something like supervised learning, which is more flexible, not flexible actually, because you just tag the data and you just want the data sets to get trained on an H5 model, PML model, or the Onyx file or something. But this belongs to just one thing. It's just annotation is the key here. And there's no big deal, because when you think of just annotating it, humans factor come into the picture. Like humans are there, they're just annotating the data and they're saying that, hey boss, this is what we want to achieve from a supervised learning. And all of the sudden there is always a continuous integration and always a continuous evaluation of all these models over the course of time. That means that doesn't make sense. I can say you example of something like Uber, which had an new pattern all of the sudden when there was a pandemic hit. Or else make my trip. This is a company which gives you this, what do you call, the travel agency stuff and things like that. But people stopped traveling all of the sudden, and there was a different pattern in which the data has to be trained. I don't think so. Supervised learning would make an effective interpretability, or else like an effective interaction to any sort of a thing. So there is something called as unsupervised learning, which is actually more flexible compared to the ones which we are building. Flexible because it learns its own parameters, it learns its own features, it's learned its own attributes. Like attributes are nothing but you have something like, let me just say I'm Vishwas, I'm a round faced guy, little fat, I know that, and a black eyed, a little bald. Yes, I'm a little bald. What to do with that? Lot of tension, man. What to do with that? And this doesn't depend on the annotation. This depends on the data set, and data is everything here. Because a lot of times when you think of something like, hey, I am finding a new pattern, should I go for a new algorithm or should I go for just adding in the data set? Like today we are making our models, which is from data sets as everything perspective, which is actually a derivative of data centric approach. It is always true, because most of the time when you think of data centric approaches, there is always an glitch in the data. Like there is always an outlier which says that, hey, did we make something wrong, or else did we make something right? Or else there is always one definition of something like, okay, we have achieved 99.9999% accuracy, can we go 100? There is always that. And super unsupervised learning is much more flexible because it doesn't depend on the annotations, it only depends on the data set. That means, let me just say there is a pattern of some shapes and sizes that we are yet to be drawn, and like this looks like a shape now, and I start writing something, it doesn't come up. Like there is always a pattern in which we are always fetching towards, and that is where your unsupervised learning comes into the picture. And in the meanwhile, I think I can get this image out from the internet. So let's Google something, and I'll get you what is that machine learning, ML. And and you can't really just get back to the definitions of what is that, what is this and what is that. This is the simple definition. Keep this in mind. There is no other complexity hidden behind it. It's the same thing. It's you can't really get away from this because it's always there for you. It always will always be used for some or the other purposes as well. Oh, I had actually drawn something earlier. Oh, this is for monitoring. That is no. Let's not touch monitoring today. I think you will be doing that on someday. And this is what your graph means all about. Like there is an unsupervised learning, supervised learning, reinforcement learning, and all the things here. What I talked about is all very data centric, and there is always an known parameter here. But your reinforcement learning is different. That's why I gave a space here so that I can draw a box. Your reinforcement learning has two factors, that is your policy and reward. And your policy and rewards are two different neural networks here. That means like there is a way in which you train it, there's a way in which you actually annotate it on the real time. It's like on the go you're annotating something. Like something like, let me just say, a policy network is something which you design for like yes or no. And the reward is something like let's just do some things like pseudocodes or something. Yes, the process goes yes, then what? Task 1. If it's no, then it's all about task 2 or retrain. It's all about that because this is an entire neural network. Don't get too fancy about neural networks, they are no big deal. It's just an, what I can say, API jugaad. Keep it simple. You read the documentation, you know this is what Keras does, this is what TensorFlow does, and you start building a neural network on that. So simple API jugaad, don't make it complex because it was never built to be learned as a complex entity. It's always built to be learned as something which is more human approachable. It's not like a devil's approach or something. So keep this in mind. So just note down this one because there is always an improper definition for all these things. Like, probably this graphic tablet plus the drawing that I'm doing probably is going through an algorithm which is more into something which is like clustering. Wait, that is here, I think so. Robot navigation. I think this is giving an example, but in clustering and everything, there is always a definition for that also. So let me just get that first so that you guys will get to know what it is all about. So clustering is something like string is something. I'll say you what clustering is all about. So you have an entire data set here, and there is always a chunk of it which gives a little bit of definition that hey, this is what is happening here, this is what is here, this is what is there, and things like that. Like there is always that misconception or a missing definition about what it is all about and things like that. So this can be category 1, this can be category 2, this can be category 3. There is a lot of definition for a category 1, like something like this is gray, there is nothing here, or else like let me just define it here. So category 3 has a bigger data set, but there is always a mix of this character and this character here. So what I as an person who sees that, okay, there is a definition here, there is a definition here, there's a definition here, these look the same way, right? So let me just take this and classify it as one, and I'll classify this as another one. Something as similar as this is what you're clustering all about. So in the meantime, don't get too cringy about like, okay, I don't know machine learning. Machine learning is not even known by go free intern or else any person. So let's just do accept the fact that there is no elephant in the room. So now, first step of any process is data collection. There is always an undefined definition for it, because why I'm saying you this, it's because before getting inside Power BI, you need to know a little concept of what is the requirement for EDA and analytics. So that's why I'm going through this. So first step is always about data collection. Sourcing to integration is what you think about. So data collection is an complex deal, no matter what. But when you know the source and you know how to integrate it, that makes a lot of sense. Like something like there is JSON asset data, there is text asset data, there is CSV, Excel SX. It's actually there because I'll tell you why. All these file formats have their own compression algorithms, have their own formats to be delivered, and you can think of something like a model, which is an H5, PMML, or else Onyx, or else TF Lite, anything. This is a file format, and this is where you are actually getting some sort of an insight about, hey, this is what my data set looks, what next. And there is always one definition on different data set like this. Like it's like there is a name here, and there's a colon, this, that, and there is this definitions, or else there are some lot of brackets, there are a lot of delimiters, and there is a different form factor to all the things that you do today. Like something like as cool as something, you take the same Yamaha bike, but the Yamaha bike has its own price. Like R1 has its own price. There is Ducati, which has its own standard, which is all plastic, but yet a bike. Like there is a difference, but yet they have their value. That's what it's all about. So it's all simple definitions that come here, and they just start making you cringe about, like, hey, I didn't learn this, what next? I didn't learn this, what next? So just this. Keep this in mind. They don't make a big deal until and unless you are too cringy about complicating the accuracy factor. Like something like I need to have an analytical pipeline which is going to be like 99.99% up. It should never make sure that my computer is overloaded or something. So that's where your Power BI comes into the picture. Power BI is optimized for the data centric approach itself. So anytime when you think of something like a data set is here, what next? There is always a different definition for everything. Like something like Power BI has its own charm in the industry. That is like it's free, it's open source, and blah blah blah. But there is always an account which is required from your organization. So organization or the enterprise edition is always there, because they can't give out all the functionalities. Like you can think of JP Morgan gave its own analytic tool, McKinsey gave its own analytic tool, or else like Bain and Co. Like these are the companies which you target when you complete your MBA, right? These are the business analytics companies which have a lot of money. Is like it's like $14 trillion, $15 trillion of transaction every single day, things like that. So organization or enterprise editions are always there, but any Power BI platforms has its own definition for being data centric. That means like I can show you the entire demo in a very very short time, so don't worry about that. It's like the data set is like too much, but it yet is optimized for lower memory on your system. So that's like that. I think there is a JP Morgan tool. I think JP Morgan open source data analytics tool. You guys have to check that out, because that is what I feel like it's more required today. source data analytics tool. I think I forgot the name of it because it's like too much of other stuff. So let's just move on with the second step because that is where you actually get the definition. So Power BI with this will be amazing. But what I have is a desktop version. It's a desktop, which is also amazing. So both of these are amazing. So don't worry. It's like you get an access to powerbi.com and you get an access to something like uh, other functionalities of Power BI apps and things like that. So let's not worry about that. Let's just stick on to the introduction that we are supposed to be giving. Then we can move ahead with a lot of stuff. So here we go on with this process. So it's step two here. Oh, went to how? So step two is always about like you have a data set. What do you require more now? So it's all about how you quantize it, how you normalize the data. It's all about like quantizing, normalization, and also about transforming the data as well. Sorry, I didn't make any slides because I thought I made 15 slides, but I thought, okay, it would be vague if I don't give you these definition and just go on with some advanced Power BI thing. It's never going to work. So quantizing is something which is always required. Something like you have an application called as a Tinder. Okay, Tinder is a very good example for all these kind of data set. I'll say you why. Okay, let's just do an application like Tinder. So there is nothing wrong in that. It's a good microservice based application, so it's not monolithic. So let's just give that example. So there is a pattern about dating, right? Dating and people visiting the application. So there is always one thing that always hinders any developers today. It's like how can we scale an application? Like something like as good as you know that you have built an amazing product, but it's not available to hundreds of people at one given point of time. It doesn't make sense because your dating app is only accessed for like 5 minutes or so. All right. This is a problem with machine learning today. It's not inferred for human level touch. Fine, let's not touch about that. So, and every time there is always a new pattern for it. Like it's like something as close to you saying that this application brings me 100 crores of profit. What next? I hope it works, but it didn't work. Fine, that doesn't make any sense. So, 100 crores of profit with 5 minutes of interaction. Like if anybody goes to Tinder, if you keep right swiping every day, it's going to be an awkward moment. At one given point, you will also get bored and you will start moving ahead. But your on click optimization is something which is cool here. On click models are something like basic definitions, but they make a lot of sense here. On click models are something as cool as something like you have an Amazon application which is just going to click on something which is there. Like how many clicks happened, how many clicks, and how many searches. So anytime when you think of something like on click model, it's like how many times there is an interaction with the customer and the actual database that we are seeing. Like that database is stagnant, but how many times it has interacted. So all these are complex data sets where there is an very short insight, but the intention of your business has to be like they should be tempted to get that data. So all these data are so dynamic, and they require a lot and lot of procedures and lot of stuff to be handled. Like, forget there is 100 crore worth of product. Like, you have built an amazing product that fetches you 100 crore. Let's say it fetches you 10 crore in 1 hour of interaction. Like, let's say your average interaction in an application is like 1 hour. So that 1 hour data has its own pattern. So this is where your quantization comes into the picture, where it is something like you have 255.55 pressure points or something. Like, let's keep it as a pressure point. There might be something like KPIs and things like that. We'll do that also, but let's just keep it as 255.55. So now you know that's a huge value right now, but you can't really go on and say that, hey, I don't think so this makes any sense, because even if the person is 250, there is the same amount of interaction that is happening here, and there is amount of transactions happening are still the same. What you do is you say that, hey boss, let's just keep a threshold 100, which we map it as something as close as an a value which is equal to 1, and there is an higher order value which is 250, which we keep it as b. Anything plus or minus of 0.09, that's a very short number, sorry for that. So anything more plus or minus of 25, will keep it as b itself. And this is where your quantization comes into the picture, where you map that a b c d definitions and say that, hey, a has one characteristics, b has one characteristic, c has one characteristic, d has one characteristic. And this is where your quantization of the model comes into the picture. And when you think of something as good as something like normalized data, normalization is not a crucial step, but yet it's an on demand process. You need to know what is to be normalized and what is to be forgotten in the data set, right? So let me just give an example of something like Pokemon Go. Amazing example. Pokemon Go actually marked the history of the gaming itself, and the way in which the company optimized using Kubernetes is an amazing case study altogether. It's actually using other companies. It's a different cloud flavor and a lot of things. So Pokemon Go has something like a random space where there is a GPS involved. There is some sort of an player who has some sort of an interaction. That's like there is a camera here. You swipe it there, and that, what is that? I forgot the name of that. This kind of a ball like this. It had this, and it was red here, and it was white here, and things like that. I really forgot that. I still remember Pikachu, but I don't remember this. But yeah, whatever it is. So this was always being taken care. And the way in which you swipe it, like it can be like this, it can be like this, or else it can be like this, whatever it is. And these was a pattern actually. Okay, like if you just go to a module called as Pygame, and if you type in some click and mouse values, something like you can say something like I'm moving this mouse like this, and that will be a coordinate here. And what you can do with that, you can actually take the data, give it to some sort of an neuroanalytics lab or something. Like, there is amazing companies which are doing research on the human behavior itself. So you can give that data to them, they can optimize on it, like something like I'm moving this like this, like this, like this, and all these will be a pattern here, and that will be annotated and that will be used. So simple as that. So if you want more, you can go to the Pygame stuff. It's always there. They will give you that definition, and there is always that crucial aspect that will be analyzed. Why I gave you, it's because GPS is something like this much latitude, this much longitude, this degrees, or else this amount of radiance or something. There is radiance is like power to r, I think so, or else let's just keep it as radiance. There is a different definition. So why you want to normalize it? Something like there are times which are like 24 hours form factor, that is like 0 to 24, and 12 hours for 12 hours time form factor, like something like 0 to 12 itself, where am and pm has a different definition. Like am is like the morning times before 12 p.m., that is like afternoon timing and things like that. So what you have to do is you have this kinds of pattern, but you have trained your entire model on one pattern like this or like this. So what you do is you just have to just optimize your data set through some or the other functions using any of these transformation functions that you write, like something like Azure Synapse Analytics has its own pipelines for something like this. You can type in the code, you can say, hey, boss, Azure, just make sure that it gets transformed into this. So there is always a system which needs to be optimized, and this is where all these tools, frameworks, and the Azure Pay package comes into the picture. Got it? So that's it as a simple example for normalization. I think transforming the data is the same thing. It's something like you have done all the above step, but now you have an JSON file, but all your models are in CSV. So what it can do is see the patterns in the JSON and map it to the CSV file format, file codes. It's like comma separated value. It's like it has some value, it has a comma here, it has some value, it has a comma here, and there is an enter which will always be written. Like there is a lot of things to it. So, yep. And this is where your transformation comes into the picture. See the pattern, map it to the CSV. This is what your entire transformation looks like. This is what your data set was. Whoa, this is the very wrongest way of doing it. But this is what was, and this is what is. So simple as that. And after doing all this, you also will get bored of doing all that, and you ask your boss, like, hey, boss, I've done all these things, but I need something as a thrill. So, what I want to do is step three, that is train your model, train the data set, and get the model. This is also a crucial step because there is a lot of parameters that is involved here. Something like there is 100 billion parameters that you train on, but at the end of the day your model has to summarize something using two parameters. So this is where your feature extraction comes into the picture. Feature extraction and feature mapping. This extraction and mapping has simple definitions, like something like feature extraction is something like there is a CSV file and there are some columns and there are some rows here. Like this has some columns and rows, and there is always a simple definition for everything. Like this can be a serial number, this can be a name, this can be like the roll number. Like serial numbers are required when somebody wants to call, like something like your USN is 12 digits long, 13 digits long or something, but your serial number is like class number. Like somebody who is short comes in the first, somebody who's long comes in the hundreds. Like I'm 5'9". I might come in something like 70s, I think so, in the class. Hopefully, if there are no 6 feet guys there. And something like okay, your address has a different stuff. So I want to know, okay, if people are traveling from 12 kilometers and apart, we need to arrange a bus facility from the college in such a way that from college to home, home to college, people will be there. But don't do that. It's a stat for nerds. I really hate that culture which is actually put inside us. So I really hate that. So something like that. So what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to take an address and you are supposed to say to your machine, not just machine learning model. If you just see some 100 data, you will know, okay, this is the pattern there. So you want to map this address on some geographic plots. We'll come to that geographic plots as well, like something like this is an India map or some map of Bangalore or something, and this is the school, and this is where your house is. And you don't want that to happen at every given point because some people might be staying here, right? So this is where your feature extraction comes into the picture. Like you know that, okay, serial number, name, roll number, that is fine, but what about this? So as soon as you get to know, okay, there are people away from this zone that I'm talking about, then I want names. I don't want roll numbers because that doesn't make any sense. As soon as you know the names, or else roll number. Or sometimes when you have two names, you need roll numbers. So take that also. Something as good as this. But your feature mapping is something cool because I'll say why. Because feature mapping takes a lot of time to analyze itself. Like it's something as good as you talking to a Google Alexa and not Google Assistant, and Google Assistant comes to you back and says that it's an I don't understand it. It should say that I don't understand it because it's not able to do that. Something like, hey Google, say me what's the percentage of charge in my laptop now. It should say 80%. Let me say I've not connected my something like Bluetooth speaker. That Bluetooth speaker is not connected to that, and it says that I don't know the device or else I don't understand what you're saying. This is where your feature mapping comes into the picture. Why? It's because there is always a learned pattern. There is always a learned pattern. There's always a learnable pattern for any model. There is always a learned pattern and there is always a learnable pattern. Something like you have this amount of data inside your entire computer, like something like uh, you have 10 people accessing 1 gigabytes of data. Let me just say there is a learned pattern which is embedded inside a CSV file. Okay, this is fine. So, and there is a learnable pattern. Something like how many times did they touch this CSV file also? Or something like which pattern in the CSV file are they really energetic towards? Like something like there is, okay, if you guys want to host, okay, not this jam or something like you have something as a pizza stall now, and you know that there is this amount of zone of people who can interact with you. Something like I stay very near to the main road, like it's like 4 or 5 roads next to mine, so I think I can go till there. But what if 2 roads behind me there is an amazing shawarma corner or something? Like I think too much non-veg example, so let me just give, okay, let it be shawarma only. So now, walking 5 roads apart is something which is an human factor which always says, hey, let's just find something which is near. So I go to the shawarma corner. But what if you know that there is a pattern of people who are in this street, like let's say hundreds of people who have the access, who have not access to, who have that habit of eating pizza for twice a week or thrice a week, something like that. Like there has to be something which is more unhealthy than that. I can't say that, but thrice a week. So now my approach would be to map my stall somewhere very close to this people who are the pattern for me. Hundreds of people who are accustomed to eating pizza every fortnight or else every something like thrice a week, twice a week. So this is where your feature mapping comes into the picture. It's something like, of course, they are nearby. What next? There is also something as a shawarma corner, which is also more amazing. So should I also change my product to shawarma or something? So this is where your feature mapping and feature extraction comes into the picture. So the simple definitions of learnable and learned parameters gives you an huge definition of what it has to be done with your data set. So right now we saw that there is an huge demand for the data science. So now let's just go on to the Power BI. What is Power BI all about? So I think too much of machine learning. Let's just go on with the demo. Like this Power BI is here. There is, I had actually taken this, but let's just do it once again here. So I locked it. That means even if I hover on it, it will not move. It's sticking onto the paper. So there was a simple rule where you wanted a lot of analytics, and there is always an EDA, exploratory data analysis. Wow. Yes. So in every given point, like something like there is an graph which will give you this definition, there is a graph which will give you that definition. Everything makes sense only once you start building the model. So before building the model, you need to know what is my data pattern all about. Like you do the analysis, LYTICS, analytics. So EDA's exploratory data analysis. So we have done that. So now all these in the form of x-axis and the y-axis, and sometimes there are other stuff also. So there is a data which is going like this and things like that. But what if the data breaks here and the data starts breaking here? Like something like you you had an highest sales, but now you're closing your shop, and now there is an already an announcement of pandemic and lockdown. So every time data has to say a story, right? Story, data needs to talk. There is always a saying which says something like you torture your data more, it starts talking to you. So data needs to talk with you. And data is always all about something like this graph is present. I know that this graph is saying me a lot, but can it say beyond it? Like it's all about insights and intent. Thus, Power BI comes into the picture where there is an integration of multiple tools and multiple technologies here. And let me just share my screen completely so that we all can get to know what it is to work in the world of AI or something. So let me just go to my papers. I think papers are the best medicine for you today. They're like, what can this do? This paper actually says you what is the absolute definition of your code and the database. And right now, this paper is really the most coolest thing that I could ever listen to. I listen to them. You can just go to read aloud here and they just give you that. I was just preparing for the demo and I was listening to this paper. I think this actually gives you a lot of insights about how visualization paves your way for advanced analytics or advanced exploratory data analysis. So this is where your things are. And also extracting multiple viewpoint models from relational database like RDBMS. You are designing some new application. What next has to be done? And in the meantime, there is always that one doubt that you always have: is my data enough? And this is where your paper always talks about. And this needless the sheet stack and augmented analytics and insights on the spreadsheet. I think this is more useful when you have something like Power Queries. Power Queries are too nice when you have something like this. And this paper actually talks about Wiz Commander, but it also talks about some frameworks like Lux, some works like Pandas profiling, something like SweetWiz or anything. So this paper is actually a very close approximation to all of this. Hey, we'll see. I found out you that you came now. Nice. Thank you. And now,
Yes, Vishwas. Hello. And there is one question also. Have you checked it?
no, no, oh, wait.
Uh,
Where
can you tell about what is BI?
Power BI is business intelligence tool. So business intelligence tool is something like, okay, something like I'll give you here. Power BI. Okay. You have this insights and intent. Fine. Let me just continue with this only. So you have this insights and intent, and the only thing that your money that your company cares is minting money. And now there is a different sources of data set, like something like you can have an S3 storage, you can have an SQL database, you have an RDBMS or something from Azure itself. So what it does is it gives you simple visualization tools to just get to know where is the break point. What I talked about this entire lockdown situation and the things like that, it's here. So they always start talking about something like what is my business insight here. So BI is just your business insight. Like this is what your business intelligence tools is all about. So if you want something more, I think in even in that paper they have given you what is this Power BI and everything. You can just go here because this is purely on Power BI and ML. Something as very close to the ML also has been done here, and you can go there. So I think we talked a lot of block diagrams here. So where is my Power BI? Oh, it's here. So yeah. So Power BI has its own local wage analysis is something here. So I've used functions like cards, I've used functions like bar graphs, I've used functions like cards here, the global plot, and there's a pie chart, and this is what you call it as slicers. This entire function is called as slicers. So let me just open what happens when you go for the Power BI tool as well. So I'll also show you how is the best way to get the installation done. So you just go to the Windows Marketplace and you just type in Power BI. It's not Power Bird, it's Power BI. Come on. Power BI desktop, it gives you everything. So since I've already installed and downloaded it, it doesn't show me anything. It says launch. So get it for free. Or else launch. Because I've already installed it, it says launch. And also there are some other Ubuntu stuff and things like that. If you want, you can do that. There is Power Apps, but this doesn't work if you don't have an enterprise or else an premium version of some things like a corporate account or an enterprise account. It doesn't work. So an enterprise has to be associated with some power product or something, and now you have an access to Power Apps. So to something more beyond that, there is something called as PL900. Wait, I'll even show you that. So it's basically a certification for Power BI tools. It's very tough. If you don't have that patience to study this, it's going to be very tough. I don't have the patience. If you have the patience, go ready, pass this exam. I'll be more happy. But if you want, you can really go there. So there are some advanced tools here. So visualizers are here. So it's like there are some bar graphs, scatter plots, there is some line graphs, there is solid line graphs, there is area plots, there is pie graphs, clips, pi and r. Py and R says that there is an integration with your power products as well. So, and also you can script some things. And this is where your visualization comes into the picture. And as you can see, wait, I can't draw here, but I think I can share you what is this. This is a field global plot, and this is a performance graph. This is the cards which I'm talking about. This is the R and the pi. I'm very sorry I don't have my on-screen writer or something, but if I had it, I would have written it. And that's it from my side. I think Zoom it has already done it. Oh, it's already here. So now if you go here and oh, I have the Zoom it, right, so I can do that. So here you can find your, oh, it doesn't support your pen. I'm very sorry for that. So here you have your global plots, here your performance charts, R and the pi. I think R and pi have their own charm here, because if you're a very script head, like something like you want everything to be done programmatically and things like that, this is the best option for you. So I think Zoom it really works cool, man. I didn't know that, but this is the learning, which is something like I have mapped all my parameters here from one of the employee chart and something. So let's just move on to this here. So this is where your reports come in. This is the below one is something like tables, which says the CSV file itself. It just gives you a visualization, and the next one is like the relationship tool, which is like what is this CSV tool in relationship with this. So how can we connect this? How can we interact it with the data? And if you just keep adding it, it will just keep getting added, and it will just make some insights. And this is what your relationships are. And also, if you can go here in the data tab, you have everything which covers all about your data, which is here, which is like get data is the best functionality that you can think about. There's Excel works, and also there is Power BI tools, SQL servers. Enter data is something like you have an CSV file and you just go here. Dataverse, I think I'll be covering it in part 4. Dataverse, because next Power BI event I'll be conducting something on DAX. DAX is something cool. DAX is all these commands that you find here. So let me just show you what this commands here. So if you guys can go and click on to this bar here, you get an access to your CSV file. And then if you go here and start working on some things here. So there is always a transformation, there is always a new refresh data, edit query, and things like that. So this is where your data set comes into the picture. And tax is something which is more advanced. And so let's not go on with this data set. This is like an employee data. So simple data set on employees and the things like this. So let's just do this. Let's not do that. It's 3 times x. So it's a new measure and quick measure. Quick measure is something like you have this data set, what next? New measure is something like whatever I do on the same Power Queries can also be done here, but there is something called as mean measure. What is that new function that you're adding? So there is a sum of these many variables. So this is what your entire definition is. And if you go here, oh, sorry for that, folks. I think it's called 3 here. So there is always a transform and refresh, and now there is always this new visualizations, text boxes, more visuals. So more visuals and everything are available if you are an enterprise edition from App Store or else from my files. From your files, you have something called as I'll show you that demo. It's here. So PBVIZ. So these are for comes there, but PBViz is something which is like a template which is already written by some god in the world of AI or anything, and he comes there and he starts saying you this is what I need to do and this is what you really require, things like that. So perfect. I think that is what we required, and that is what we are doing right now. Oh, it doesn't work. The tab doesn't work. I don't know why, but whatever it is. So let me just go on with the new page. If you type in here, if you just go in here, if you click on here, there's something called as a plus symbol, and that is where your new page comes up. So you go click on that, you have an empty template. What you can do is you can just go on with and slice it graph. So there is always an field plot here. So let me just do the field plot, and it takes in the variable called as cities. So if I do cities, look at what happens. So it's just going to the plots which I gave, and cities has there are some variables here. So there are hundreds of cities, and what next? And there are some countries here. So country is also being plotted here, and everything comes up, and it says that how many companies are here. So if I go there, it starts plotting every company and everything. So in this graph, what I did is it takes time because I think I'm running too many processes. No, I'm running very less processes. God, save my computer. All right, let it come. Yep. This is the global plot, which is something like I'll show you one of our Easy Day websites also has it. This is loading. It doesn't come here. Sorry, it doesn't come here. Yeah, it's also powered by Bing. You guys can go here and see it's also powered by Bing. So Bing powers this application. It's like you had an application and something like there is a backend code written in some languages like Python, Node.js, or JavaScript or something, and it starts interacting with it. So it's all about this Bing application which is making the level. So if you just go here and type in, it takes a lot of time, and I don't know why, but it takes a lot of time. But yes, let's just boot up this wage versus the revenue stuff. There's a KPI plot that I did, and this learning was always about the different parameters using this area plots, or else the line plot also works the same. So don't worry about that. Phew. It's tough when you have a very slow computer. I need to throw this very fast. It's 8 gigs, but I don't know why. But let it take time. So I think all these papers are given to you folks, so you guys can read it. But like amazing papers, so read these papers. So I think I'll clear this tab. I think I got all the visualizations right. So yeah, there was a lot of North America, Antarctica. Nobody will be there, so it doesn't make any sense. So there's always a geographic key and things like that. So if you go to this plot here, this revenue versus this chart, and I've used the same plot here, but if you see the way in which I've plotted it, I'll show you what was the variables here. So there is always this geographic one. So geographic key is here, this country, company, city. So let's just do the same stuff here. So there is company, country, city, and there is a geographic code. And if you do this, you'll have plots which always says, hey, this is where your country plots are coming in, this is where your companies are. So let's not do that also. Let's just go on to this plot here. Look at what we have done here. So there is only city and plots, and there's geographic key here. So yes, has to be up here. And it's all configurable. Like it's like you can just move here, move there, and things like that. So let's just go on with the bar graph, and there is a different amount of parameters that is coming in. Like something like this bar graph has no insights about anything. So what I do is I take some things like gross pay of 2013, gross pay of 2014, gross pay of 2015. But this is like one variable being analyzed. But what if I want hundreds of functionalities to come in? So this is where your slicers come into the picture. So I'll show you where is the slicer. This is a slicer. That symbol what you're seeing is a slicer, and this gives you hundreds of functionalities. And like there is lot to it. So let's do one slicer here. All right, there is a slicer here. So what I want is a country to be plotted. So there are different countries here. So what I want is there is different countries here. Just give me all the list of countries where I can do some visualization. And now slicer is so effective that even if I do a bar graph here, I don't know why this came like this, but let's just think about it. So 2014, 2015, 2016. So there is always this one. So if I type in something like Adams, Alligals, and there is different plots here. So if I go here and if I want to change something, I want to select multiples, right? So single select is not there, multiple select is there. So select all is also there. So if I do Albany and and all these, so just see how the plot starts moving. So if you see this also, the plot starts moving in a certain way that it's always showing us where's the plots happening and what is it all about. So if you all have this one notion that hey, it's going to be complex, how do we get it done? So this is how we get it done. And see how the regions are getting mapped here, how the countries are being mapped here, and how the gross salary 2014, 2015, and 2016. And every country and every state has their own changing values. Like something like this region has this value, this region has this value here. What next? And ADA has a different value here. So ADA is here, and what is that region giving me all about? If you want, there is something like geographic key here. Geographic types also can be plotted, but let's not jump onto that very quickly. So Albany, everything got plotted. So if I want to transform something here, so what I can do is I can go here, I can select the general, and the orientation really matters. If it's an horizontal one, you can really change it like this. And you can also reduce the size, and you can really have this arrow which can move on to any side. And there you have it. You have the Aslan has this gross pay and things like this. So this is what your simple visualizations are. And sometimes what happens is something like, of course what is this value, but it will not get printed, but you are getting the visualization. What you can do is you can go to something called as cards here. This card functionality is something which is always there because this cards gives that value. Like let me just say there's a gross value of Ashland, which is this here, and I want to really get that visualization. Plus, I want to know what's the value of it. So what I want to do is I want to visualize it. What I simply do is I click on it, I grab. Oh, I think it got into that function because I had selected this. So I don't want the slicers to get affected. Okay, it affected the slicer. That is fine. I don't want you to affect my slicers. So keep it like that. So let me just select this. So, and also sometimes you have to be a little careful about functionalities because functionalities can get any worse. Like this is a slicer which has a lot of other parameters here like cities, countries, and you can add multiple also, but let's just do on it. So it came in. So let me just do the same general one, general, horizontal, and the stuff. God, it takes time. If you are doing research, get ready to slam your laptop with lot of softwares and it doesn't start work in the demos. Fine, let's just move ahead. So I think I have taken the card. What I want is I want a value from not a city, but I will say gross value of 2013, gross value of 2014. Also, I'll be plotting it here. So you can resize it to whatever you want. So I'll import one more card here and I'll take it like 2013, 2014 here. And I'll take one more card and I'll mark the 2015 there. I think 2015 is plotted and perfect. So what I can do is I can arrange it with the help of a lot of markdowns which are present in the which are already present in the BI tool, the business intelligence tool, and I can start working on the graphs. And so now if I say ADA, the cards change and the value of this geographic plot changes and this bar graph changes. So in a meanwhile, this is giving the highest value and the lowest value. This is like a comparison. So what if there is one more plot which I really require and want it to say a lot about the area plots, and there is always this, and what if every country has its own definition on this? So this doesn't work. So what next? Company's value. And every company has its own story right now. So every time there is a new visualization, there is 60K, 20K, 20K to 10K, and this is for Weinberg and Monican. That's a company that's here, and this is all about Whaley's from working. There's Sterling Steel Balls and a lot of other companies. So companies plots have come in. So their mean, median, mode, max values are here. So if you want to really change how your visualizations are, you can just go in and change it here. Just go in and change it here. But I love this visualization because I love more of the blue in my plots. And if you are so upset about your plots coming like this, you can have a bar graph like this. So if you do pd dot bar also gives the same. If you do the same graph here, it also gives the same thing. So let me say there's a pie graph here. So let me just take in a new sheet and do a pie graph. So there's a pie graph here, which is saying me, okay, you had all these definitions. So gross pay 1, gross pay 2, gross pay 3 is always fine. But what next? I need a slicer. Oh, it went for the slicer. Sorry for that. Slicer here. And I want it to be oriented horizontal. Wait, let me just import the data, then it will come up. So a pie graph is something which is cool because it says you and 100% how much is the contribution of this variable. Like something as good as, where is my graphic pen? It's here. So this and Power BI. That's done. So there is always this 100% definition that we always want, and this is always the differentiation. So this belongs to one person, this belongs to another person, this belongs to another person, and this belongs to another person. So all these have their own chart. And when you plot a pie graph or a pie chart, what happens is you can visually analyze how much is the contribution of this star here, how much is the contribution of this person here, how much is the contribution of this person here, how much is the contribution of this person here. And every time when there is always and different tools and technologies which are coming up, how companies analyze is also using these tools itself. They just go on with the random plots and they have this one pattern and they do all this, but at the end of the day they take pie chart. And in a meanwhile, if you think of some BCom guys who wants to enter into the field of machine learning, Power BI is the best tool if you want to really get in. So let me just do country here so that it will be much more easier. I think countries came in, so general came up. Let me just do horizontal. And let's just see what does Alexandra City has to give us a pie chart. What is Alley has it? What does this? I think there is a minute change, but all of them have the same pay grade. I think Austin might give you different. Atlantic, Athens, and things like that. So there is no abrupt change that you are seeing. Like something like it's like this graph is something which is growing like this, and it's stagnant for a while, and all of a sudden it starts decreasing, and it goes here. So there's nothing like that massive change, and that's where your pie charts are not here. And if you go for the wage analysis, like I'll just show you this plot. It's like the simple thing. I will even give you the PBIX files. Yeah, it's the way in which you can export it, or else I'll even give you that one. So this is this graph, the gauge graph that I'm talking about. So gross pay and the cleaning wages. So let's just do it also, so it's no big deal. So if you just go here, there's a gauge graph. So there is a gross pay of 2013, and there is another gauge graph which is 2014, and there is a gauge of 2015. And what I saw was there is something called as a living wage here. So what I want to do is, of course, there are two parameters. What should I do with it? So I will always take a living wage, start comparing. And if you put the same old slicer here, oh, this is what I never wanted to experience, but fine. That is cool. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And let's say, of course, I can take one more parameters for the gauge graph, like something like here. Let's say average salary. There's a gauge, and now there is a living wage here. The sum of the living wages. So there is a little bit of change that we are seeing, and all of these titles also can be done. So let me just do with the splices, and let me just do country and city. So if I do that, if I do here, if I do Alabama, okay, there is an change here, but I have selected this. So Aurora, I say Denver, and there is other cities and things like that. So all these plots, right? They have their own way of saying what it is all about with that variable with respect to this variable. So all these make sense only when you have analyzed the data. And I've just taken a simple data set, but next session will be going on with a lot of sessions on your where is this general? It has to go on with it, right? Position, exposure. Oh, since I selected two variables, it didn't pop up. So if I select one, there is horizontal here. And basically vertical also works the same way. So if I select it, and if I select city, it should not go to well, and it didn't get selected. See, this is how automated your workloads are in Power BI. Like you really can't deny the fact that this is the most coolest tool. Like this is the one of the best tools that you can look at. So let's just give this a little bit of space, and let's just give one more functionality here, like some sort of an area chart or something. Let's just do that also, so that I visualize everything and you get to know what's the perfect definition for all the stats and all the files that we are building today. So I'll even show you how to export it also. So there's a company here, and there is an let's say there is an city here. That is also fine, but that doesn't make any sense until we have some more variables which says that. So average state pay, and there's a gross pay here. There is 2014, 2015. What do they give? And all these can be seen on a new tab, something like this. So if you just, I'll even show you how to do that. Just go here, and there is this symbol, focus mode. Just go click on that. You get everything here, which always says, hey, this is what your plot was saying. And in Stanford, in Wilson, there is a gross pay of 31.724 thousands and something, which is very close to this. And all these graphs have the same old way of saying what is the revenue, what is this, what is that. And I think I ended all the definitions here, but like let's just do some more blob plots and scatter plots and whatnot. So let me just say there is a living wage, it's a gross pay, there is an 2013, and there's country here, and every city has its own definition for everybody who is living there. And every company has its own way of paying an employee. Like something like, okay, this company has this many amount of employees here, so they are ready to pay this much amount of money for you. And right now that makes sense because a lot of times we might miss out on some things as good as, what if my company is going bankrupt and I have employees who are highly paid here. So these are the plots which come and play a major role in your this thing. So last thing, let me just show you how to explore this one. So in this first part, we covered how to visualize, right? First part, visualization. Second part, we'll be doing a little bit of DAX. Third part, we do a little bit of queries. Integration. So all of these together will be something which is always, I really learned the hard way, because a lot of times when I started learning Power BI, I gave up many times. I literally am very frank with you. I gave up many times, but a lot of times I brought my hope back and I started learning. And this is what my part one, part two, part three, part four will be. And this is what part one did, the introduction. So this was just an intro. So a lot of things are coming up. Of course, there are other people who will be taking Power BI, not just me. So I contacted them and I told them this is what we will be doing. And yes, they will be taking a session. And from my side, that's it, folks. Thank you so much for all your time and all your patience in learning Power BI.
Yeah, and be ready for today 6 p.m. Logic Apps. Folks, to join us, and
Yeah,
we will
folks,
be with
please do
the
join us.
part. We will be with part two of the Logic
I
app.
think,
And if you haven't checked the part one, you can check till now on the same Azure Developer channel, and you can start with part two also.
I'll
And
use less of jargons
okay,
today because it will be more of something like hands-on. It will be completely hands-on. It's like no introduction because already we had done in the first part, so we'll not be doing anything there. So it will be completely
okay,
hands-on.
but it will better if anyone check that out also. It will
Yeah,
be
it will
like
be
more
better. It
good.
will be better. Yeah, that will be more better. Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you
Thank-
for joining. Thank
Yeah,
you,
thank you so
Vishwas.
much. Yeah, we'll see. Thank you so much.